LA Sports, bringing you sports to the net or your set.
Welcome back to LA Sports. This is Rick Cruz, and today we're joined by Dr. Todd Meiklejohn. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, good to have you here. He is the author of a very interesting book, Moving the Chains, A Parent's Guide to High School Football Recruiting. And I think the question that begs to be asked, Doctor, is what inspired you to write a book as such with a very interesting title?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for inviting me to LA Sports, John Ruiz, Laser Collazo, and Miguel Lopez, and giving me an opportunity to present this forum, which is a very important topic. I think what inspired me the most was the book was born out of necessity. The more I got involved in the recruiting process, especially as a parent of a Division I athlete, I began to realize, and as an educator, I began to realize the void that there was, that parents and athletes just didn't have all the recruiting and academic information. They didn't know where to get it. That actually a resource, there was really no resource available. So in terms of moving the chains, which makes it unique is that it's specific to high school football and it's written just for parents. But the book in itself goes beyond reading, and it's interactive, and I'll give you a couple examples. In the book, we teach parents how to calculate core GPAs. We teach parents how to make a highlight film. We teach parents how to reach out and contact coaches, how to develop a recruiting relationship. So the book stands alone as an academic resource more than anything. I think the ultimate goal of the book is to empower parents so they can be proactive instead of reactive, and give them the vital information that they need in a concise form. The book is easy to read. As you see, it's not many pages. It's meant to be as more of a resource as it is for reading. So ultimately, if your child has the ability, they have good grades, and they have the right information, they'll be successful on signing day and avoid those most common recruiting mistakes.
You mentioned, Doctor, a couple of important points that parents, players, coaches have to deal with during the whole recruiting process. You mentioned, how do I make my son, in this case for football, eligible, getting through the clearinghouse, the GPA, the SAT, ACT, and you mentioned, how do I market my student athlete by providing, promoting, creating a highlight tape or video so that he has more options when it comes time to choose a college where he's going to be the next 4 years studying and playing football.
Yes, it's important you talked about that. I always tell parents there's really 3 or 4 key critical, it's a lot of information in the book, but number one, you got to have good grades. And that's a whole standalone chapter right there, which is a whole nother segment of the show.
Sure.
Of course, any of these chapters we can go into detail for hours, but you got to have the grades, you got to have the ability, and number 3, a lot of parents and athletes do not have it, is the highlight film. And I caution parents all the time, and players, if you don't have a quality highlight film developed early on in the 9th grade, that is your most single important exposure tool with your player profile that you have to give a coach, that you have to send out. Without those 3 key components, there'll be no scholarship. So again, when you go through the book, we take them step by step. How to send the film out, how to make it, how to send it out, how to contact a coach by email, how to contact a coach by phone, how to contact a coach by correspondence. As you know, it's a 5-6 year process. We go step by step, bullet for bullet. We make it easy and outline for them. As a matter of fact, again, I talked about the interactive elements. I developed a 4-year recruiting plan. Now, it's not a blueprint, all-inclusive plan, but it's year by year what the athlete should be doing, and the parent, step by step, from freshman year to senior year. And it tells you contacting the coaches, the clearinghouse, the academics. It lays it all out. So you know what it is? it tells you where you should be as opposed to where you are. So it's very interactive. It's very comprehensive.
I'm sure it is, Doctor, because certainly through the years, the recruiting process has changed. It used to be years ago that a quality student athlete that excelled certainly on, in this case, the football gridiron, and did a good job in school, would have schools all over the country recruiting. He would make the selection, sign a letter of intent on National Signing Day, and attend. It seems now, as you just mentioned, to be not only a year-long process, but in the case of prospective athletes that at a young age you can tell have a chance to be special, have a chance to possibly gain that scholarship from a college to play athletically, it becomes a 4, 5, 6-year plan. And the better prepared you are for that, and it seems like in your book, moving the chains, like in football, the analogy, you want to get first down after first down after another. You want to complete the drive. You want to score a touchdown. Right. But it's a time-consuming drive to move the chains. It's not one big pass play where you score right away. It's going to take play-by-play, option by option, covering
multifaceted.
Multifaceted, as you mentioned. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you hit on several key points. Number one, as much as I hate to admit it, with the advent of technology, and we outline this in the book, because we're actually teaching parents how to use technology to their recruiting advantage. For example, cell phones. Cell phones now have HD capability. We have the iPad. We have YouTube. We have Facebook. We teach parents how to use that to their advantage. But with that being said, in technology, unfortunately, I mean, like I said, we're now evaluating online 7th graders, 8th graders. The coaches who are, college coaches spend hours, months on the road evaluating. They know who the talent is. So you're right. It's a year-round process, parents marketing your child, because the coaches in their programs are doing it. But more importantly, if you are not doing it, then somebody else will. And yes, those days of 11th and 12th graders, it's gone. You have to come in 9th grade with a plan, and we talk about it in detail, the 6 key components of a recruiting plan, and all these things are in there. We can't get into all of them, but it is a multifaceted, multi-layered process that if you don't have a plan, you know what they say, you plan to fail. And that's the importance of moving the chains. It brings all this together. All this information is scattered throughout the internet. It's out there. I didn't reinvent the wheel, but what we did was we brought it all together in an easy, concise format so they can go check for check. They can stay on pace. They can enter, and going back, we're going to talk later about the event, but tying it all into event, we're not just targeting the high school players. We want the Little League players to come out and the parents to get this information so they can go in the 7th, 8th, 9th grade and be ahead of the curve.
You know, Doctor, it's interesting because you mentioned how important it is for parents, again, of middle school prospective student athletes to get involved with this. One of the issues in high school sports is the great student athletes transferring schools because they want more exposure, because they feel if they go to a different school, they have a better opportunity. And sometimes they leave behind their childhood friends, the ones that they played with at the park, the ones that they played in leagues together, because of the fact that perhaps the local team that they belong to as far as high school is not as high exposure, not as talented, maybe not as good a team. But with a product like your book that you've put out, a parent, a student athlete can stay in his community, can continue to go to the school that he wants to be with because that's where his friends are. Those are the kids that he grew up playing with. And even if their team is not as successful or has as high a profile as other schools, they can still market themselves and obtain that sought-after scholarship without having to move to another school or to another community?
Well, I'm the parent of a Division I athlete, and I'll use my own self as an example. My son started out in the 6A level. It wasn't about football, but it was about academics. He was struggling at his school, and we had to make a decision as a family what was in his best interest. It wasn't he went from a 6A to a private small school.
Of course, 6A being the largest classification
yes,
in the
sir.
state of Florida.
And he was a starter on the team, and you know, his scholarship future was secure because he had the ability, the grades, but we had to make a decision in his best interest. I'm a career educator, and I would tell parents, you know, I'd caution parents, don't get in the habit of skipping high schools. You know, coaches are going to come in and evaluate and say, why has this, a savvy college recruiter will say, why is this kid going from school to school? But in Perry's case, it was about academics. And he went, although he went from a larger class to a smaller class, he was still marketed. He had the game film, and we go back to my original point. He had the ability,
sure.
He had the grades, he had the desire, he had the exposure. But the criteria, and this is a recruiting insider here, the criteria that they used for him at the smaller division level, the college coaches, was, did he dominate every play? So a player going from 6A to a smaller division in terms of recruiting, you better ensure that you dominate at the 1A, 2A level, because some coaches will take off a few quality points if you don't do quite, if you're not quite as dominant at the lower level. But Perry, you know, he's a big lineman. He was pancaking everybody, and you know, but I can use myself as an example. But
sure.
Again, the point that I'm trying to make is to caution kids about this transferring in and out. You can hurt yourself in terms of recruiting and a summative evaluation, because coaches do evaluate character. And again, as an educator, I always make a decision in the best interest of the child, not just an athletic decision.
Absolutely, Doctor. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the event that's coming up, because, again, using this book, again, it's titled Moving the Chains, A Parent's Guide to High School Football Recruiting by Dr. Todd Meiklejohn. Doctor, what is this event that's coming up in the near future that our viewers would like to know about?
Okay, well, as you know, I'll tell you, first of all, the event has blossomed like we couldn't have imagined. We have the support. It's March 26th, the City of North Miami, FIU North Stadium. We have a wonderful venue. We have the support of the mayor, Andre Pierre, from North Miami, who's given us a wonderful venue. Lale Sports is now involved with the support of John Ruiz, Laser Collazo, Miguel Lopez, who's president of GVP, Fred Baptiste, vice president, and Enrique Kiki Fernandez, the whole staff. I had to, you know, give credit to Lale, because what we're trying to do is something completely different than what's being done. In support of the book, we're having an event, a football event, that supports both the athlete and the parent. Right now, what you have is more football-focused events. We're going to try to shift things, again, to give parents something.
What date is this event?
March 26th at FIU North.
Okay.
Secondly, we're going to have Mario Smith from Trainers R Us, who's been successful at the private versus public school game. He's going to be out there lending a hand, giving his expertise. He's going to be scouting for his upcoming, all the juniors to be seniors, scouting for his upcoming All-Star game. But more importantly, let me stress this. This event is going to be hosted by all educators. There'll be athletic directors, top coaches. Speaking of which, Don Solinger is going to be our running backs coach. He was my coach at Miami Southridge. You're talking about a guy who's won 2 national titles, 2 state titles. How many first-round draft picks?
So many.
5, 6, 7. Edgerrin James. So
sure.
any running back out there who's one of the top running backs, you got to come out and get something from Coach Solinger. But the event is, we have the support of the community. It's educational based. March 26th, FIU North. And if anybody needs information, they can go to www.recruitingdoctor.com.
Okay, one more time, Doctor, with that.
www.recruitingdoctor, one word, .com. I know it's a little long.
Sounds good. Well, we want to thank Dr. Todd Meiklejohn for being with us tonight. Once again, his book, Moving the Chains, A Parent's Guide to High School Football Recruiting. If your son is a great student athlete and playing football, make sure that you pick up a copy of this and maybe get him involved in the event on March 26th at FIU North Stadium. Okay? Thanks again.
Hey, man,
for
thanks.
tonight.
That was
okay?
awesome.
Appreciate it.